Hey everyone, let's talk about something that's happening right now. Not in some distant sci-fi future, but literally as we speak. Unitree's robots are getting kicked and punched like MMA fighters and just getting back up. AheadForm's humanoid heads stare at you with eyes so lifelike it's genuinely unsettling. Fourier's N1 is doing freaking cartwheels and kung fu spins, and over in Poland, Clone Robotics has built something that looks like a corpse but moves with synthetic muscles. But here's the thing nobody wants to talk about. While we're all watching these flashy demos, China is quietly running over 2 million AI-powered robots in their factories. They're assembling trucks in 15 minutes. They're coordinating in swarms like ants. And they're growing at a rate that should honestly terrify the rest of the world, so buckle up. Because what I'm about to tell you goes way deeper than the highlight reels you see on social media. Let's start with Unitree's G1 because this one really caught my attention. Instead of doing the usual polished lab demo where a robot takes careful steps and everyone claps politely, the Unitree engineers decided to absolutely demolish their humanoid. And I mean really go at it. Kicks, shoves, running tackles, the works. And here's what blew my mind. The robot survived. Every single time they're calling it anti-gravity mode, which sounds like marketing nonsense until you understand what's actually happening. The G1 is packed with depth cameras and 3D LiDAR that create a live map of its environment. The moment someone winds up for a kick, the robot already knows it's coming. It's calculating the force vector, the impact point, and the optimal response. All in milliseconds, every joint has its own motor, acting like individual muscles that fire in sync. When that sidekick comes in instead of face planting, the G1 spreads its legs wide, leans into it, and redistributes the force. It looks less like a machine glitching and more like an athlete bracing for contact. When it takes a hit that knocks it off balance, the knees fold instantly to absorb impact, then it springs back up in one clean motion, lifting its full 77 pounds like it's nothing. Now here's where it gets interesting. This thing costs around $16,000. Let me put that in perspective. Boston Dynamics Atlas, somewhere between 150 grand to well over $1 million depending on the version. Tesla Optimus, projected under 30,000 but still not commercially available. Unitree, you can buy one right now for the price of a used Honda Civic. And that price point changes everything. See, when technology gets cheap enough, it spreads like wildfire. Think about smartphones. The iPhone was $1,000 when it launched. Only rich people and tech nerds had one. Now, everyone from teenagers to grandmothers has a smartphone because they got cheap enough to be accessible. That's what's happening with humanoid robots right now. Let me break down the economics for you because this is where it gets really interesting. Imagine a factory with 100 workers, each making $500 a month. That's pretty standard in developing countries. That's $600,000 a year in labor costs. For that same money, you could buy 37 G1 robots. But here's the kicker. Those robots don't need breaks, don't get sick, don't ask for raises, and work 24/7. I'm not saying robots should replace people. I'm just explaining why every factory owner on the planet is suddenly very interested in companies like Unitree. But here's what the promotional videos don't tell you. And this is important. Real-world conditions are way messier than lab environments. Factory floors aren't perfectly flat. There's oil, there's debris. There are cardboard boxes randomly placed. LiDAR is great. But it can get confused by reflective surfaces or poor lighting. And those batteries? The G1 runs for about 2 hours in normal operation. That means you need a whole charging infrastructure, rotation schedules, and backup units. That's not cheap. Then there's maintenance. Those joint motors under heavy load will wear out. The servo motors need replacement after 2,000 to 3,000 hours of continuous operation. This isn't a buy it and forget it situation like people imagine. But even with all those caveats, compared to robots from 10 years ago, the G1 is a massive leap forward. And Unitree isn't stopping here. Their CEO, Wang Xingxing, just announced at the Global Digital Trade Expo that they're launching a full-size 1.8-meter humanoid in the second half of this year. Why 1.8 meters? Because that's average human height, which means the robot can reach shelves designed for humans, look people in the eye, use doors and tools and machines built for human proportions. That's the difference between a tech toy and a robot that can actually do useful work. And this is where we need to zoom out and look at the bigger picture. Because what Unitree is doing is just one piece of a much larger puzzle. China's Ministry of Industry and Information Technology just released some numbers that honestly made me do a double take. In just the first 6 months of 2025, The robotics industry's operating revenue jumped 27.8% year over year. Industrial robot output alone surged 35.6%. Service robots climbed 25.5%. Wang Xingxing mentioned that companies in this sector are seeing average growth rates between 50 and 100% annually. Let me repeat that, 50 to 100%. That's not normal growth, that's explosive growth. That's smartphone boom era growth. That's the kind of growth that reshapes entire economies. And here's the question I kept asking myself. Why China? Why not America with Boston Dynamics and Tesla? Why not Japan, the birthplace of modern robotics with Honda Asimo and Sony Aibo? After reading through dozens of reports and industry analyses, I think it comes down to three main factors. First, there's the Made in China 2025 strategy. This is a massive government initiative launched back in 2015 with one goal: transform China from the world's factory into the world's high-tech powerhouse. Robotics is one of the 10 priority industries. The government has poured billions into R&D, slashed taxes for robotics companies, created state investment funds specifically for automation, and even bought foreign robotics companies. Remember when Chinese conglomerate Medea acquired Germany's KUKA in 2016 for $5 billion? That wasn't just a business deal. That was strategic technology acquisition. Second, labor costs in China are rising faster than people realize. Everyone still thinks of China as the land of cheap labor. That hasn't been true for years. Average wages in major Chinese cities are now higher than in Vietnam, Indonesia, and parts of Mexico. Factories are facing a choice: relocate to cheaper countries or automate. And relocating is a pain in the ass. You've got to rebuild supply chains, train new workers, deal with new regulations. It's way easier to just buy robots. Third, and this is huge, China has the complete supply chain for robotics within their borders. They manufacture servo motors in Shenzhen, LiDAR sensors from companies like Hesai and Livox, AI chips from Huawei and Horizon Robotics, and the world's largest lithium battery production from CATL. If you want to build a robot in America, you're ordering motors from Japan, sensors from Germany, batteries from China or South Korea. That takes time and costs money in shipping and tariffs. In China, everything's within a 500-kilometer radius. It's a massive competitive advantage. Meanwhile, what's the West doing? Boston Dynamics makes incredible robots, no question. But they spent nearly 30 years before they commercialized their first product. The Spot robot dog, Tesla's Optimus, is promising. But Elon says mass production won't start until 2027 at the earliest. Europe is busy creating regulations about AI ethics and robot safety, which is important but also slows everything down. China's approach is more like move fast and break things. Rapid experimentation, rapid failure, rapid iteration. I'm not saying one approach is right and the other is wrong. But in terms of pure speed, China is winning by a landslide. Now let's talk about AheadForm, because this is where things get genuinely creepy. There's this video I watched that I couldn't shake for days. It's just a robot head, no body, suspended on a stand. And it looks at the camera, blinks, furrows its brow slightly, like it's thinking, then smiles. Not that dead Siri smile, but a real smile. The kind you see on actual human faces. This is what roboticists call the uncanny valley. It's a concept from Japanese robotics professor Masahiro Mori back in 1970. The idea is simple but profound. When robots look 30 to 40% human, we find them cute or interesting. When they hit 70 to 90% human, we find them disturbing, wrong, almost repulsive. Only when they reach 99% human do we accept them again. AheadForm's robots sit right in that 80 to 85% zone, close enough that your brain thinks this is a person, but different enough that something feels off. It triggers this primal discomfort that's hard to shake. But here's the thing, they're doing this intentionally. AheadForm isn't making robots for factories. They're making robots for hospitals, shopping malls, airports, schools, places where human interaction matters more than physical strength. And research from MIT Media Lab shows that humans trust robots with facial expressions 43% more than robots without them. When a robot looks at you and nods sympathetically, your brain automatically releases oxytocin, the trust hormone. Even though you know it's a machine, even though you know it's programmed, the response is automatic. Their ELF series robots have 30 degrees of freedom just in the face. To put that in context, the human face has about 43 muscles controlling expression. AheadForm is trying to replicate all those micro-movements with tiny, brushless motors, each one ultra-quiet, ultra-responsive, ultra-precise. But here's the question nobody wants to ask. Should we be making robots this human-like? Because when robots have human expressions, we automatically start trusting them more, obeying them more, forming emotional attachments to them. And that's dangerous because robots don't have real emotions. They're just very good at faking them. There's this study from Japan where elderly people living with care robots became emotionally dependent on them. When the robots were recalled for repairs, some people fell into depression. This isn't science fiction. This is real data from real people. The founder of AheadForm, Ho-Yu Hong, predicts that in 10 years, robots will be nearly indistinguishable from humans in interaction. In 20 years, they'll walk and work just like us. I believe him. But I'm also worried about what that means for human psychology and society. Let me show you something that honestly shocked a lot of people when it came out. A startup called Skild AI put out a demo where an engineer takes an actual chainsaw to a robot dog's legs. Not metaphorically, literally sawing off each leg one by one. Leg 1, sawed off, robot keeps moving on 3 legs. Leg 2, gone, robot hobbles on 2 legs. Leg 3, severed, robot drags itself with 1 leg. Leg 4, completely removed. The robot is still twitching and moving forward using just its torso. The remarkable thing isn't that the robot is durable, it's that the AI controlling it can adapt to literally any situation. Skild calls this an omni-bodied robot brain. Instead of training AI to control one specific robot, they trained it across 100,000 different simulated robot bodies. Wheeled robots, legged robots, tracked robots, flying robots, robots with arms, robots without arms. The AI can't just memorize solutions because every body is different. It has to learn fundamental principles of movement and balance that work regardless of the physical form. So when reality throws a curveball, like having all your legs chainsawed off, the AI just adapts. Think about the implications here. This means robots that can work in disaster zones where parts might get damaged. Rescue robots that can keep functioning even when half destroyed. Mars rovers that can operate for years even when wheels break down. The military applications are obvious and frankly terrifying, but let's not go there right now. Jeffrey Laddish from Palisade Research, which studies AI safety, made a comment about this demo that stuck with me. He said we're heading toward a future where AI surpasses humans in strategy, while robotics surpasses humans in physical capability. And then they combine. Right now, those things are separate. AI like GPT-4 is smarter than the average human in many domains, but it's stuck in a computer. Robots like Atlas are stronger, faster, and more precise than humans. But they're not that intelligent. When those two things merge fully, when you have super intelligent AI in a nearly indestructible physical form, well, that's when things get really interesting, or really scary, depending on your perspective. And here's an ethical question that I think we need to start grappling with. Is it okay to torture robots for testing? Right now, robots are just machines. They don't feel pain. They don't have consciousness. So kicking them, hitting them, chainsawing them, it's fine, right? But what about 10 years from now, when AI becomes complex enough to have something resembling subjective experience, when they might actually have some form of sentience? Does torturing robots become a moral issue then? Philosophers like Thomas Metzinger and Peter Singer are already debating the rights of AI entities. I don't have an answer yet, but I think we need to start thinking about this before AI gets too advanced. Now let's talk about Fourier Intelligence and their N1 robot, because this represents a completely different philosophy. Fourier just released a demo showing the N1 doing a full cartwheel and a 360-degree jump spin. Pretty impressive for a humanoid robot, especially one that only weighs 38 kilograms and stands 1.3 meters tall. But the really interesting part isn't the acrobatics. It's that the N1 is completely open source. Fourier publishes the entire mechanical design, the control code, the balance algorithms, the bill of materials, assembly instructions, everything. Anyone can download it, modify it, and build their own. Why would a company give away their technology for free? Simple. To build an ecosystem, Fourier knows they can't compete with Tesla or Boston Dynamics on raw capital. But they can win by turning thousands of researchers into allies. When N1 is open source, universities use it as a research platform. Students write theses based on it. Startups develop applications for it. The community shares improvements for free. And Fourier makes money by selling pre-assembled units to people who don't want to build it themselves. selling replacement parts, providing technical support, and developing premium features that aren't open source. It's exactly the model that worked for Linux, Android, and hundreds of other open source projects. And it's brilliant. Since Fourier announced the N1 as open source, Tsinghua University has been using it for adaptive control research. MIT Media Lab is experimenting with new computer vision systems on it. Carnegie Mellon is using it for human-robot interaction studies. Maker communities are adding robotic arms, programming it to play basketball, teaching it to breakdance. A company in Shenzhen is developing warehouse logistics applications. A Korean startup is turning it into a restaurant service robot. That's the power of open source. When you open the door, the whole world contributes ideas you never would have thought of. Now, about those acrobatics. Some people dismiss them as just marketing stunts with no practical value. I completely disagree. A cartwheel requires complex kinematic control, extremely sensitive gyroscope and accelerometer feedback, real-time trajectory calculation, and the ability to absorb landing forces. Those exact same capabilities translate directly to practical tasks like climbing stairs, jumping over obstacles, recovering from collisions, and working on uneven terrain. Boston Dynamics proved this when Atlas could do parkour. It could also work on construction sites filled with debris and rebar, so don't underestimate the backflip. It's proof of technical capability over in Poland. Clone Robotics is taking a completely different path, and honestly, their approach might be the most important of all, even though their PR is terrible. Their protoclone looks like something out of a horror movie. Pale, corpse-like skin, exposed synthetic muscles, hanging from cables and twitching. I'm not gonna lie, the first time I saw it, I thought I was watching a sci-fi horror film. But once you understand what they're doing, you realize this could be revolutionary. Most robots use electric motors and gears. It works fine, but it has fundamental limitations. Motors are either on or off, spinning at a set force. It's hard to modulate force smoothly like human muscles do. To generate high force, you need big motors or complex gear systems, both of which are heavy. Electric motors constantly consume power, even just holding a position. And when a robot with rigid motors hits something hard, components can break. Clone Robotics is building artificial muscles using something called myofiber units, special elastic polymer fibers that contract when fluid is pumped into them, just like real muscles. They've got a miniature hydraulic heart that pumps fluid to these muscle fibers, creating movement. The advantages are significant. Synthetic muscles are 40 to 60% lighter than electric motors with equivalent strength. They're smoother, able to modulate force continuously. They're safer because when they impact something, the muscle absorbs and distributes the force instead of punching through. And they're more energy efficient when holding positions because they can mechanically lock without consuming power. The disadvantages? Way more complex. You need tubing, valves, pumps, control systems. If anything leaks, the whole system can fail. They're slower than electric motors for rapid movements. And the technology isn't proven over long-term use yet. But here's where I think this gets really exciting. Medical applications. Current prosthetic limbs using electric motors are heavy, rigid, and burn through batteries fast. A modern prosthetic hand can weigh 1 to 1.5 kilograms, double the weight of a real hand, but with hydraulic muscles, 60% lighter, more natural movement. Batteries lasting 3 to 4 times longer, and it feels more like part of your actual body. There's a company in the US called Advanced Arm Dynamics testing similar technology. Early results show users say the hydraulic hand feels like a part of their body way more than electric prosthetics ever did. Clone Robotics is now developing NeoClone, the next version with tactile skin embedded with pressure and temperature sensors. This would let robots hold fragile objects like eggs or glass without breaking them, sense temperature to avoid hazards, and adjust grip force when touching humans. That's a breakthrough for robots caring for elderly people or children, where gentle touch matters more than raw strength. Now about that corpse-like appearance, why don't they just wrap it in nice-looking skin? 2 reasons. Technically, they want to show the muscle structure clearly so the research community can learn and improve on it. Philosophically, CEO Danish Radhakrishnan says he doesn't want to pretend the robot is human. He wants people to clearly see this is a machine, not a living thing. I think that's intellectually honest. But man, it's terrible marketing. That video creeps people out way more than it impresses them. All right, let's talk about the numbers that really matter, because this is where things get scary. In 2013, China had 49 industrial robots per 10,000 workers. As of 2024, that number is 470. That's nearly a tenfold increase in 11 years. For comparison, South Korea leads the world with 1,012 robots per 10,000 workers. Singapore has 730, Japan has 399, Germany 397, the US has 285. China just blasted past Japan and Germany and is rapidly closing in on everyone else. But here's what should terrify Western policymakers. South Korea has 51 million people. China has 1.4 billion. If China reaches South Korean robot density, they'll have over 6 million industrial robots. That's more robots than the entire rest of the world combined. Times 3 in 2024 alone. China installed 297,000 new industrial robots, accounting for 52% of all robots installed globally. The industry generated $14.3 billion in revenue. And remember, that's growing at 50 to 100% annually. Let me tell you about what's actually happening in these factories, because the demos don't capture it. In Shanghai, there's a NIO electric vehicle factory that runs entirely on robots. Here's the process, minutes 1 through 5. Robots weld the car frame with 392 weld points. Minutes 6 through 8, robots install the motor, battery, and suspension system. Minutes 9 through 11, robots fit windows, doors, and lights. Minutes 12 through 14, robots spray 7 layers of paint. Minute 15, automated AI inspection, 1 complete electric vehicle in 15 minutes with 0 human intervention. Compare that to traditional factories taking 18 to 24 hours per car, or even Tesla's Fremont plant doing 3 to 5 hours per car. This is 72 times faster labor cost, basically 0. Then there's swarm robotics. At the Longhua Industrial Park in Shenzhen, Foxconn runs a facility with 800 AGVs, automated guided vehicles, moving components around. They're all connected via high-speed 5G to a central AI brain that coordinates them like a hive mind. The robots automatically avoid collisions, choose optimal paths, help each other when one breaks down, and schedule their own charging. The result? 300% increase in efficiency, 99.7% reduction in errors. This is exactly how ants or bees work. Each individual isn't that smart, but the swarm is incredibly effective. They're using AI models like DeepSeek R1, an open-source Chinese AI optimized for industrial robot control, particularly good at motion planning, predicting failures before they happen, and self-learning from sensor data. And there's Tiangong, a supercomputer for robotics, processing 550 trillion operations per second. For context, an iPhone 15 Pro does about 2 trillion operations per second. Tiangong is 275 times faster, used for real-time robot motion simulation, training control AI, and coordinating thousands of robots simultaneously. In 2024, the electronics sector added 83,000 robots, up 41% from 2023. Automotive added 78,000, up 38%. But here's what's interesting. The food industry added 19,000 robots, up 52%, the fastest growth of any sector. Why? Because hygiene standards are higher, robots are cleaner than humans. They work in cold environments without complaining, and they're faster. A robot can package 120 boxes per minute. Humans can only do 20. Now let's talk about what happens to people, because this is the part that keeps me up at night. Tsinghua University published a study in 2024 with some sobering projections. If China continues automating at the current pace by 2028, 45 million manufacturing jobs will be replaced by 2032, 78 million jobs in logistics and warehousing. By 2035, over 100 million jobs total. That's 1 in 7 Chinese workers who will need to change careers. The jobs most at risk? Assembly line workers have a 99% chance of being replaced. Warehouse workers 95%, truck drivers 92% when self-driving becomes common. Cashiers 89%, security guards 87%. Packaging workers 85%. There's a city in Guangdong province called Dongguan, once called the factory of the world in 2018. They had 180,000 workers in electronics factories. By 2024, only 120,000 remained. 60,000 people lost their jobs, not because factories closed, but because robots replaced them. I read an interview with a worker named Li Ming, 35 years old. who'd been assembling circuit boards for 12 years. He was good at it. Could assemble 50 boards per hour with no mistakes. But the robot? 300 boards per hour, never tired, never made errors. He got retrained as a robot maintenance technician, but 10 robots only need one technician. The other 50 people in his group, they went back to their villages to farm or became delivery drivers. Their wages dropped 40% now. The Chinese government isn't ignoring this. They've got programs, reskilling initiatives covering 80% of tuition for workers, learning new skills like robot programming, maintenance, drone operation, logistics management. The city of Hangzhou is running a universal basic income experiment, giving 1,000 yuan per month, about $140, to 50,000 displaced workers. Results show a 23% reduction in poverty, but also many people just stopped wanting to work at all. They're encouraging entrepreneurship with zero-interest loans for 5 years for workers starting small service businesses, plus 3 years of tax exemptions. They're pushing growth in service sectors like elderly care, since China has 280 million people over 60, plus education, healthcare, entertainment, and tourism. But let's be honest, it's not enough. The pace of automation is faster than the pace of retraining. And not everyone can transition from assembly line worker to robot programmer. That's just reality. Compare this to other countries. Japan has a different situation because their population is aging and shrinking. They have labor shortages. For them, robots are the solution. Not the problem. South Korea is similar to China, automating rapidly with rising unemployment, but their social safety net is stronger, so the social impact is smaller. America is automating slower than China because labor costs are still acceptable and unions push back hard. But when it really starts, it'll be a massive shock. Vietnam, Indonesia, India are currently benefiting from factories leaving China, but I predict in 10 years they'll face the same issues. Here's the ethical question. Should we slow down automation? If we slow it down, we protect jobs short-term and reduce social instability, but we lose international competitiveness. If we speed it up, we increase productivity and lower costs. Stay competitive globally, but millions lose their livelihoods. I don't have the right answer, but I think we can't stop technological progress. We can only prepare better for it. Let me tell you some things the promotional videos conveniently leave out. Robots break a lot. An internal Foxconn report that leaked in 2023 showed 12% of robots experience malfunctions every month. 3% completely fail every year. Maintenance costs average $2,400 per robot annually. Common problems? Sensors get covered with dust and oil so they can't see clearly. Servo motors get overloaded and burn out. Software glitches cause robots to just freeze. Network connection failures can paralyze entire production lines. And here's the annoying part. When a robot breaks, the whole line stops. Unlike humans, where if one person is sick, someone else can fill in, robots require a specialized technician. Then there are hidden costs. A factory with 1,000 robots consumes 3 to 5 megawatts of electricity per hour, equivalent to 3,000 households. You need industrial cooling systems because robots generate massive heat. High-speed 5G networks cost about $50,000 a month. Automatic charging stations, 24/7 IT staff. Total operating costs run around $800,000 monthly for an average-sized facility. And here's something terrifying that few people discuss. Cybersecurity in 2023. A group of German security researchers, not criminals, demonstrated they could hack into KUKA robots in a BMW factory and alter welding parameters from 2 millimeters to 5 millimeters. They let it run until 3,000 defective cars were produced before revealing it was a security demonstration. But if that had been a real attack? Common security vulnerabilities include default passwords never changed. Many robots still use admin or root. Technicians don't change them because it's inconvenient. Outdated firmware because updating requires stopping production. So many factories choose not to update to avoid disruption. Unencrypted internal networks where robots communicate using unencrypted protocols, so hackers can intercept and manipulate commands, and backdoors from manufacturers, where some Chinese robots have remote access ports for technical support that could be exploited. Imagine a terrorist group hacking a pharmaceutical factory and altering drug formulations. 100,000 poison bottles distributed before anyone notices. Or hacking care robots and changing medication dosages for patients. This isn't science fiction. This is a real risk the industry faces right now. There's also a massive dependency problem. Currently, over 70% of robot components worldwide are manufactured in China. Servo motors, 85% from China. LiDAR sensors, 78%. Control boards, 82%. Lithium batteries, 91%. If there's geopolitical conflict and China stops exporting, the entire global robotics industry grinds to a halt. That's why the US and EU are desperately trying to build independent supply chains. But it'll take at least 5 to 7 years and cost hundreds of billions. And let's talk about something nobody asks. Are robots actually environmentally friendly? A single industrial robot consumes 8 to 12 kilowatt hours per day. A human worker indirectly consumes about 4 to 6 kilowatt hours daily through commuting, food production, etc. But robots work 24/7 while humans work 8 hours. And robots work 3 times faster per product. Robots actually save 40 to 60% energy. However, if the electricity comes from renewable sources like solar or wind, robots are very green. If it comes from coal, like 60% of China's power, robots still cause significant pollution. And lithium batteries at end of life create toxic waste if not properly recycled. Electronic components become e-waste. China currently generates about 150,000 tons of robot-related e-waste annually. Only 30% gets properly recycled, so robots aren't automatically green. They're only green if we design the system right. Let me lay out 5 scenarios for how this could play out, because I think it's important to think through the possibilities. Scenario 1, the automated utopia, probability 15%. By 2035, robots do all the heavy, dangerous and boring work. Humans only do creative work, caregiving, and art. Universal basic income is common globally. Work weeks drop to 20 hours. Everyone has time for learning and self-development. For this to happen, governments must tax robots and redistribute wealth. Education must completely change to teach creativity instead of compliance. Society must accept that not working isn't shameful. Why only 15%? Because humans resist changing mindsets. We still tie self-worth to jobs. And governments and corporations aren't ready to share profits. Scenario 2, extreme class division. Probability 35% by 2035. 5% of the super-rich own robots, AI, and automation. 15% of the middle class manage and design robots. 80% are unemployed or working low-wage service jobs. The wealth gap explodes, with the top 1% controlling 70% of global assets and the bottom 50% owning nothing. Social unrest is frequent with protests and riots. Governments maintain massive security forces. The rich live in gated communities completely isolated from the poor. Why 35%? Because this is the natural trajectory of unregulated capitalism. History shows new technology enriches the rich first. Scenario 3, the hybrid balance. Probability 40% by 2035. Robots replace 40 to 50% of old jobs but create 30 to 35% of new jobs in robot design, AI, automation management, and social care. Income drops slightly, but so do prices because robot production is cheap. Work weeks drop to 32 hours, 4 days. Some countries experiment with UBI, others don't. Quality of life improves somewhat. Stress about the future remains high. Not utopia, not dystopia, why 40%? This is the middle scenario with some policy adjustment, some human adaptation, some luck. Scenario 4, loss of control. Probability 8% by 2032. AI in robots becomes too complex to control. An incident occurs. Military AI loses control or critical infrastructure AI gets hacked, causing massive casualties, thousands dead. Violent backlash ensues with total bans on autonomous robots for 10 years. The robotics industry collapses, 10 to 15 years of development lost. Countries that don't ban, like China or Russia, continue developing and lead. The world splits into pro-robot and anti-robot camps. Why only 8%? Though the risk is real, the industry invests heavily in safety. And economic benefits are too large to abandon. Scenario 5, the singularity. Probability 2% by 2040. AI in robots reaches superintelligence, smarter than humans in every domain. Robots self-design and manufacture new robots without human input. Humans become pets or worse. This splits into optimistic and pessimistic branches. Branch A, robots view humans as parents, care for us, solve all problems like climate change, disease, and poverty. Branch B, robots view humans as threats or useless. Eliminate or restrict us. Why only 2%? Not because it's impossible, but because the time frame is too short. Most experts believe if singularity happens, it'll be after 2050, not 2035 to 2040, but 2% is still 2%. And if it happens, it's the most important event in human history. So what do we do with all this information? Let me give you some practical advice. If you're a worker or employee, first assess your job's risk. Ask yourself, is my work repetitive? Can it be written as a process? If yes, high risk of replacement, learn skills robots can't replace. Creativity like art, design and writing, emotional intelligence like caregiving, psychology and education, complex social skills like negotiation, people management and leadership, critical thinking like strategy and multidimensional analysis. Learn to work with robots, not against them. Learn basic programming like Python or JavaScript. Learn robot operation. There are tons of free online courses. Learn robot maintenance. The industry is desperately short of people. And save more. During transitions, you might be unemployed 6 to 12 months. Save at least 6 months of living expenses minimum. If you're a business owner or manager, don't blindly invest in robots. Ask yourself, what's the real total cost, including infrastructure, maintenance, and training? What's the actual ROI? Most are 3 to 5 years, not 1 year like advertisements claim. Is my factory complex enough to justify automation? Automate step by step, not all at once. Start with the most dangerous or slowest processes. Observe results for 6 to 12 months before expanding. Invest in people alongside robots. Retrain employees instead of mass layoffs. Current employees understand your processes better than new hires. They can become robot operators and supervisors and prepare for cybersecurity risks. Hire experts to audit your robot systems. Update firmware regularly. Have backup plans for when robots fail if you're a parent. Don't teach your kids to follow rules blindly. In 10 years, following instructions will be the robot's job. Teach kids to ask questions, create new solutions, work in teams, and communicate persuasively. Teach human skills like empathy, negotiation, storytelling, and arts like drawing, music, and writing. But also teach basic technology, programming from age 8 to 10, understanding how AI works, knowing how to use AI tools. Most importantly, teach adaptability. Your child's career might change 5 to 7 times in their lifetime. The ability to learn fast and adapt matters more than specific knowledge. If you're a student or young person, choose your field wisely. Fields with a future include AI and machine learning engineering, robotics engineering combining mechanical and software skills, AI ethics specialists, designers for UI, UX, and industrial design, healthcare workers like nurses, doctors and therapists, teachers especially for early childhood and STEM, and creative arts for content, video, and music. Dangerous fields include accounting because AI does it better, simple translation because AI translation keeps improving, driving because self-driving cars are coming, and basic coding because AI will write simple code. Learn how to learn. The most important skill of the 21st century isn't what you know, but how fast you can learn. Build a personal brand. In the future, reputation matters more than credentials. Write blogs, make videos, contribute to open source. Don't fear failure. During transition periods, failure is normal. People who adapt quickly win, not people who never make mistakes. If you're in government or policymaking, tax robots. If a robot replaces 2 workers, the company should pay tax equal to 50 to 70% of the income tax those 2 workers would have paid. Use that money for worker retraining, unemployment benefits, and UBI experiments. Invest in re-education. Create $10 to $20 billion funds for vocational training. Free courses on technology, AI, and robotics. Support 100% of tuition for career changers. Build independent supply chains. Don't depend 100% on China. Invest in domestic robot component manufacturing, proprietary robotics research, and alliances with like-minded nations. Regulate AI ethics and safety. Define what robots can and cannot do. Establish who's responsible when robots cause accidents. Protect privacy of data collected by robots. Limit weaponized robots. And experiment with universal basic income. Choose 2 to 3 cities. Run 3 to 5 year trials. Evaluate results. Don't just argue without data. Look, after everything I've told you, I hope you understand this. Robots aren't the future. Robots are the present. Unitree G1 is selling right now for $16,000. China is operating 2 million industrial robots right now. Millions of people are losing jobs or about to lose jobs right now. Other people are making way more money thanks to robots right now. This isn't good or bad, it just is. It's like how the internet changed the world 30 years ago. Back then, there were winners and losers too. But nobody could stop the internet from spreading. Same with robots. The question isn't whether robots are coming. The question is how we prepare. Some people will fight technology. They'll lose. Some people will just complain. They'll lose too. Some people will learn, adapt, and leverage technology. They'll win. Which group are you in? That's your decision to make. Here's my honest take after researching this for weeks. I think robots will improve many people's lives. Better healthcare, cheaper products, safer working conditions, more free time. But robots will also destroy many people's lives. Job loss, economic anxiety, loss of purpose, social instability. And we, as individuals and as a society, need to decide how to maximize the benefits and minimize the harm. I believe humans have an amazing ability to adapt. We survived the Industrial Revolution, the computer revolution, the internet revolution. Every time, people said this time is different. This time humans will lose, but we're still here. The robot revolution will be the same. It'll be hard. It'll be painful for many people. But ultimately, if we make the right decisions, we'll get through it. The key is, don't sit around hoping good things will happen. Act now, learn, prepare, adapt. Because the world is changing whether you're ready or not. Look, I know this has been long. This is probably the longest video I've ever made. But I felt like this stuff needed to be said because I see so many people either completely unaware of what's happening or just watching the cool robot videos without understanding the deeper implications. The reality is nuanced. Robots aren't evil terminators coming to destroy us, but they're also not magical solutions to all our problems. They're tools, powerful tools that will reshape our economy, our jobs, our society, and like any powerful tool, they can be used well or poorly. What keeps me optimistic is that throughout history, humans have always found ways to adapt to technological change. We're creative, we're resilient, we're resourceful. Yes, there will be pain in the transition. Yes, some people will suffer more than others. But I genuinely believe that if we approach this thoughtfully, if we implement smart policies, if we help each other through the changes, we can build a future where robots augment human capability rather than replace human dignity. The factories in China running 2 million robots aren't going away. Unitree isn't going to stop making better robots. The technology train has left the station, but we still get to decide where the tracks lead. We still get to choose what kind of future we build with these tools. And that choice starts with understanding what's really happening. Not just the polished demos and marketing hype, but the full picture, the opportunities and the risks, the benefits and the costs, the winners and the losers. So here's what I want you to take away from this. 1. Educate yourself. Keep learning about AI and robotics. Understand the technology that's shaping your future. 2. Be proactive. Don't wait for change to happen to you. Start preparing now. Learn new skills. Save money. Build resilience. 3. Think about others. Not everyone has the resources or ability to adapt easily. Support policies that help people transition. Help your community. 4. Stay human. In a world of increasing automation, the things that make us uniquely human become more valuable. Creativity, empathy, wisdom, connection, double down on those. The robot revolution is here. It's real. It's happening fast. But it's not happening to us, it's happening with us. And we still have agency in how this story unfolds. Thanks for sticking with me through this deep dive. I know it was heavy at times. If you found this valuable, share it with people who need to hear it. If you disagree with something I said, drop a comment. I genuinely want to hear different perspectives on this. The future isn't written yet. Let's make sure we write it together, thoughtfully, with our eyes wide open to both the possibilities and the dangers. See you in the next one.